Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about some additional extra techniques. Now, I've chosen to do this as an extra lesson because some of you may not have whammy bars on your guitars. Some of you might find some of these techniques a little bit harder, so I didn't want to include these in our main lessons or in our playthrough track, out in the style of track. Like I said, if putting whammy bar stuff in there, if some of you have fixed bridge guitars, I didn't think that that would be particularly helpful. But obviously, there are some other techniques that really played a big part in Eddie Van Halen's style. And I thought it was worth just dipping our toe into a couple of these approaches and just showing them to you so that you can work on them. Now, I should point out that there are many other techniques and many other approaches that Eddie included in his playing, and for us to really focus on all of those would just make this this guide absolutely huge, and some of the techniques are incredibly advanced. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to discuss a little bit about using the whammy bar as well as talking about using harmonics. So let's kick things off by looking at some whammy bar techniques. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the easiest out of all of these techniques and approaches to using the whammy bar is probably the humble dive bomb. You can take an open string, take the open low E string, strike the string, and then just depress the bar. Eddie would do that a lot. You can hear that in Eruption. He'd do this thing where he'd drop the bar, play the low E, drop the bar, and then he, with his fretting hand, he would pick the A string and raise the A string up to pitch. So you get an effect like this. Dropping the diving down that low E string and then picking, pulling the A string with your fretting hand, plucking it and raising the string back up. Couple of uses there, just sound effects that you can put in, maybe in between licks, or if you're playing a riff. Now, he would also apply the dive bomb when he was playing solos as well. So maybe take like a little blues lick. Drop the bar down. He did that a lot on the G string. So what I'm doing is just pulling my first finger away from the 5th fret. You can hear it kind of just tails off the end of the lick, and it's a very sort of stylistic sound that you'll hear in Eddie's playing. Now, another really cool technique that Eddie would apply with the whammy bar is where he bounces his hand up and down on the bar. So he's just lightly depressing it ever so slightly just by literally just bouncing the hand on it. So if I play a note, you can hear just that effect. It sounds really cool if you play a lick. Dive the note off at the end. How about we try pulling off to the open string? So you can start to hear some of those little tricks and other sound effects that he would apply to his licks. Let's look at one more cool technique and use for the whammy bar, and that's where Eddie would scoop into notes. If I take a little phrase going between 2 notes, a hammer on. Now, just before I hammer my 3rd finger down, I'm just going to dip the bar ever so slightly, so I'm scooping in to the into the 7th fret of the G. And he would apply that to his 3-note per string. he would use all of these techniques and do different variations of them. So, have a go with some of those ideas of the whammy bar. They're just introductions, really. Remember, this is an intermediate level course. There's a lot more that he did with the bar, but just try the dive bomb, try pulling the open string and raising some of those little bounces as well as the scoops as well. Try putting them all together when you're coming up with some licks. So now let's talk a little bit about harmonics. Now, Eddie played harmonics in a variety of different ways. He would play natural harmonics, he would play artificial harmonics, as in tapping harmonics, and he would also use pinched harmonics. But let's have a look at some natural harmonics. Now, there were lots of places where he played harmonics. Some of them are a little bit harder to achieve. Some of the like the fourth fret, and some of those are quite hard to get. But he was, he would play those and use them quite melodically to play little melodies when he was playing riffs. But what you can try and do is try playing them on single strings to start with. Maybe take the G string, play a harmonic at the 12th, the 9th, the 7th, and the 5th. And you can play those on all strings in those positions, or try playing on the D, G, and B strings at the 5th, the 7th, and the 12th. And you hear him using little harmonic figures like that a lot. Now, something really cool that you could try is to take our main riff, our inverted power chord riff. You see that I just put in some of those harmonics and playing them pretty randomly, but just using them as a way of embellishing the riff. So this could be something cool that you could do outside of the app if you want to take that riff and start to develop it further. Now, also using natural harmonics, he would add them in his licks and use the whammy bar. Try taking our little blues lick we did. See there, I was scooping in. He would use the natural harmonics and manipulate them with the whammy bar, doing dives, the little bounces, and the scoops. Now, Eddie also used pinched harmonics quite a lot. Adding aggression to the sound of a lick. Okay, just really digging in, and also using pinched harmonics with the whammy bar as well. Just pinching in, bending a string, and then just diving the notes down. Again, I'm being just throwing ideas at you with these different techniques, but these are all things that you can try. Just touching your thumb. There you go. That was a nice one. Get the pinched harmonic and then drop the bar down. So he used pinched harmonics a lot of the time in his playing. Now, another approach to harmonics that Eddie would take is using tapped harmonics. Probably a good place to start is to take an A minor chord and take the notes that you're fretting, which are the 2nd fret D, 2nd fret G, and 1st fret B. And then go exactly 12 frets above. So the 14th fret of the D, the 14th fret G, and the 13th fret B. And you can just try lightly tapping over the fret to produce a harmonic. Okay, I'm actually tapping on the fret wire in the same way that you produce a natural harmonic. You don't produce it in the fret, you produce it over the fret. So. That's a really cool sound. Have a listen to the opening to Girl Gone Bad, and you can hear him playing those tap harmonics. That's a really effective sound. Also, he used that same technique in Spanish Fly. So just to wrap things up, I want to mention another application of tapped harmonics that Eddie used, and this is when he used them within a solo context. Now, this is pretty hard. He would tap on different frets to produce different pitches whilst holding a static note. For instance, if he played, say, the 7th fret G, he would tap over the 14th fret and over the 12th fret, creating these higher pitches. You can really hear that at the front end of his solo on Beat It. He was so good at that. He'd strike them and those notes would just leap out. So, there's some of these techniques might be a little bit harder for you to try. Definitely experiment with the natural harmonics and just try, mixing some of these up a little bit. Take one of our licks. Now, that tapped harmonic technique there that I just showed you is pretty advanced, but maybe start off by just experimenting with the tapping over the top of the chord shapes. That's a little bit easier to achieve. But what I would really suggest you do is to look at some of the slightly more approachable, fun effects, the dive bombs, the bouncing, and maybe some of the natural harmonics, and maybe take some of the licks that we've learned and try adding those techniques to those licks outside of the app. You can see once you start to put them together with some of those sort of EVH style licks, you get a little bit more of an authentic sound.